My name is Stephen Goakes and I'm the Managing Director of Natgen. I'm here today to talk to you about our latest in our series of Natgen Development Trusts, Natgen Development Trust UC26. You'll actually notice if you look through the Natgen Development Trust back catalogue that UC has appeared 3 times in that catalogue, UC26 being the latest. And UC stands for Upper Coomera. So this project is similar to one we've previously done in Upper Coomera and quite different from another. So it's basically at this stage a 27-unit office warehouse development, which is going to provide light industrial space for a variety of types of tenant and will be developed by the Trust and then sold as strata units to a variety of end users and investors over time. This project will be very similar to a number that we have done previously, and you will again see those within our back catalogue. We're getting both long-term experience and some real expertise at doing these type of office warehouse projects, and that goes from everything that comes through in the design of what we do. So over time we're certainly tweaking the designs to take account of the aspect of the property more, to provide better flow through and to provide more light within each of the properties. So in fact, we feel like we're getting significantly better at this, and you can see that through the process. That said, from the very start, we've had access to a lot of really great consultants that have become the core of our development business. These are people such as the town planners, the engineers, everyone related to designing. And as I mentioned, Upper Coomera is an area that we're very well familiar with for a couple of reasons. First of all, we've done a number of developments in the very near vicinity, but also the inaugural offices of Natgen were actually contained within our first development, which is also on Northwood Street at Upper Coomera. So literally across the road of this development site was our first development within the Natgen portfolio. And we lived and breathed the area for 5 years until we moved out into larger premises at the end of last year. So the site that we're talking about now has been one that I've literally had my eye on for 5 years. I think we first tried to purchase it maybe in 2021, and we missed out at that stage when it was sold to the current vendor that we're buying it off now. So we've watched it over the years. I've thought of a number of schemes in my head of what we would do with that site. The reason that I've always wanted to do that site and develop it is its proximity to the M1 motorway. It's the last block before you get to the road reserve on the M1. And also it's very high above the M1, so it should have very good locations so that it can be conspicuous from the M1. Anyone following Natgen will notice that we've got another Upper Coomera property right on the M1 motorway, which is our self-storage facility, which is a little bit further to the north. That's the general self-storage at Upper Coomera. That was actually a development in Natgen Development Trust UC22. So we've got this really good location, high above the motorway, very good current connectivity to the M1, both to the north and to the south, through both exits 54 just to the south of the site and also exit 49 to the north of the site. But also one thing that we've always known was coming and is now much more proximate than previously was a flyover which has been planned for the M1 immediately to the north of this site. So basically the property immediately to the north has recently been sold to the Gold Coast City Council to allow for that development to take place, which will basically put this site in the epicentre of the east-west traffic across from Coomera to Upper Coomera. Basically Coomera is the area to the east of the M1 motorway, and Upper Coomera is the area to the west. These areas, Coomera, Upper Coomera, Pimpamar, and basically the surrounds there, the growth powerhouse of southeast Queensland basically. As we go through the life cycle of seeing this develop, we've been at it now for 7 years, and we've seen population growth massively increase over that time. This is exactly as was predicted by the Queensland Treasury in their population forecast within the last 10 years. And their forecasts now go through to 2046, which shows really massive growth will continue. So in that time, we've seen a Westfield shopping centre open within a couple of kilometres. We've seen a number of other shopping centres. We've seen probably a dozen schools open in this area, and it's really opened up as a major residential dormitory area on the north end of the Gold Coast. One of the interesting things about the Gold Coast is it's actually quite land constrained, because if you look at the location, obviously the sea to the east is a hard barrier. There's a mountain range to the west, and there's the border with New South Wales to the south. So the only place the Gold Coast has had to go is to the north, and a fair bit of that land is good quality agricultural land, so it's not really available for development. So there's going to be a significant shortage of all types of land on the Gold Coast in the future. One of the aspects that this will bring is that there'll be a densification. So larger allotments will be made smaller, there'll be subdivision of residential sites. But that's not really possible with industrial. You need space for industrial. So really, once the latest crop of industrial land is taken up, it's going to be very constrained into the future. We think that's a reason why there's great value in industrial to the north of the Gold Coast, both short-term for development, but also long-term for holding. The targeted return for Natgen Development Trust UC26 will closely mirror that of other Natgen short-term development trusts, and it will be in the sort of 24 to 25% range over the term of the trust. The trust term is expected to last between 18 months and 2 years, again consistent with previous short-term Natgen developer trusts. One of the first things we do for any Natgen investment or development trust is look at the fundamentals of a site and an area, be it an existing property or a development. And what we're looking for is the strategic aspects that make that a good property in both the short term for development or long term for holding. So that will include things such as population growth. What's the expectation for that? As I previously mentioned, the population growth in Upper Coomera has been stellar over the last few years, and that is expected to continue. The other thing that we always look for is infrastructure, proximity to infrastructure, because again, infrastructure indicates where society expects people to be that government infrastructure or private infrastructure, and consequently that's where people congregate. The Upper Coomera area provides massive infrastructure for the local residents and businesses, be that the M1 motorway with 170,000 cars per day, be it the secondary road network, be it the Coomera Connector, which is also colloquially known as the second M1, which is running up through that area as well. That's also infrastructure such as the new Coomera Hospital, which is going to be a major tertiary hospital in that area. And in fact, if you drive through the area now, you see the massive elevator shafts are already in place, and that will provide major benefit to the community. The sport and recreation facilities in this area are really amazing, and that's again been due to the massive inflow of people and sporting requirements. Shopping facilities. Coomera has been the site for the third Costco in Queensland, which again, they only look for massive population numbers to support their activities. And there's also other shopping centres as well. There's a series of supporting shopping centres supporting the Westfield Coomera Town Centre. Also, educational infrastructure. There's more than a dozen schools have been built in the last 5 years in the area. There's a TAFE has been built. There's various other private education facilities, and I would say countless childcare centres. They're just everywhere. All this indicates the need for the type of facilities that we plan to provide with the UC26 Trust. And that provision is for small business owners who need small industrial and office facilities to run their business. This is everything from tradies needing somewhere to store their materials, to other types of industrial users, but in each case, very light industrial users. It's not really manufacturing type industry, it's more storage and very light industrial uses. Another thing that we've seen coming through in the time that we've been doing this is the industrial areas changing in their complexion from purely industrial to kind of what I'd call industrial lifestyle areas. So we see a lot more different types of things we wouldn't have seen previously. So in some of our other developments that we've done, we're seeing things like private gyms. There's effectively what you'd call Instagram studios where influencers go to do their thing, whatever that would be. We've got dog walkers in one of our facilities. We've got gamers in another. So really lifestyle is impinging on the industrial nature of these places really significantly. And I think that's a really good thing because it adds to the breadth and depth of the business community in these areas. In providing development services for investors, we see ourselves as somewhat different to other developers in the market. First of all, we provide a direct method of our investors to participate in the development process, not simply by lending money to a developer, but actually being involved in the development process and being involved with the profit that comes through development. Other things to take into account when you look at Natgen is that we are an ASIC licensed entity. So our Australian Financial Services license provides a lot of obligations that we have to fulfill for investors. So for example, you'll find that each of our development trusts, or investment trusts for that matter, audited every year by a registered company auditor. And also our licensee entities are also audited, and those audits are provided to ASIC each year. That's an important aspect, but that just goes some way to show the type of oversight that we provide within our vehicles, as I say, be they investment trusts or development trusts. And when you've got that obligation and you have that oversight, it really becomes part of your DNA. So this business is built on oversight and making sure that we know exactly what's happening with every aspect of what we're doing. Be that in the capital raising process, we're careful that the disclosure documents that we provide everything that you should need to know to make an informed investment. Be it through the process of choosing builders, we do due diligence on the building companies that we use. Even through the process of choosing our debt providers. We make sure that the debt providers are capable of providing the debt when we need it through the process, and B, that they are going to be able to perform when we need the drawdowns to take place. Now, that may sound simple, but it's actually not as obvious as you think. You have to be careful of these things. So at every stage, we're looking at the due diligence aspects of everything that we do, and putting it in the disclosure documents and then executing. And I think at this stage we've finished 5 of the 8 development trusts that we've put to the market so far, each of them successfully, some of them moderately successfully and some of them massively successfully. So we expect to maintain that track record going forwards, and actually oversight is the key to that. So I previously mentioned Natgen Development Trusts and Natgen Investment Trusts. So a Natgen Investment Trust is where we purchase an existing asset and then we run it for a 5 to 6 year period for the benefit of our investors. And then at the end of that time, we divest it and basically pay back the debt, and then the capital is returned to unit holders. That's very much a monthly income product. So someone who's looking for steady monthly income through the period is really looking for that. We also have the opportunity to gain capital profits during that time, but the main emphasis of those things is on the steady monthly income. The development trusts are slightly different, and they come in 2 flavors basically. We've got the short-term Natgen development trusts, which firstly, they're the sort of things like UC26, where we buy a site, we do due diligence on it, we raise an offer, we then build something on it and basically sell it to the broader community. And we've done a number of those in the past, and this is the latest of a series of those. The other type of Natgen development trust is the long-term, what I'd probably call hybrid, where we again get a site, we build a property on it, and then we manage and run that property for a longer term for the benefit of unit holders. In that case, we're talking mainly about our self-storage assets at this stage, which currently exist at, and are built actually at Upper Coomera and Mollendina on the Gold Coast. And the Park Ridge facility will be coming out of the ground later this year. The money was raised for that last year, and we expect future long-term Natgen development trusts as well. So everything that we do is basically guided by the Natgen investment philosophy as our sort of North Star, you'd say. So we always look at what that tells us about an area and what we need. It boils down to doing what's in the best interests of unit holders at every stage of the process. Maybe that seems obvious, but it's not always the practice of some people. So we make sure that that is our actual practice. So those core principles are vital in choosing sites and how we deal with the risk aspects of what we do. So speaking of risk, development is a somewhat risky venture. Risk is just another term for variability or variables. And in a development project, there's a number of variables which have to be managed. But again, risks are things that have to be managed. So the process of making sure that all the risks are appropriately managed is basically our job. Management of the variables is choosing our builders or our construction partners. And in that case, we do due diligence on the people who we use as builders. And actually, the choice of a builder can make a massive difference to the outcome of a project, but also the process of how you get there. And as we go through, we've got now preferred builders because we know how they operate, and they're kind of part of our inner circle of trusted builders and consultants. And that's really valuable going forwards, to have those people who we can trust to provide real value to us. And if they're providing value to us, they're providing value to you. That's how it works. So the risk in the development process starts with choosing the site and doing appropriate due diligence on the site. For the UC26 site, it's actually quite a complicated site in terms of the engineering of the underlying site. It's part of an industrial subdivision that was developed about 2017. And so we've known the subdivision all the time. However, there's a number of aspects of it, including a sewer across the site. There's some retaining walls. So there's quite a lot of things that we've had to consider as we go through. So as we've been through our due diligence, we've come up with a number of matters that need to be dealt with. And basically, we've dealt with them and made sure that they're not going to cause us concern in the future of the development. That said, because it's in an industrial subdivision, we also have the benefit of very good sewerage infrastructure and drainage infrastructure. So that also helps in the development process as well. Whereas if we get sort of a virgin site, if you will, all those things have to be engineered into the development itself. So once we've dealt with that aspect of it, we also look, of course, at the marketing aspects. We make sure that our market rates for the sale of the properties is agreed by both our agents that will do the marketing, and also, crucially, the valuers, because each of our sites gets valued at the raw land value and also as if complete value. This is important for the financiers too, of course. So basically, there's a lot of moving parts that come together before we make an offer, such as UC26, to the market. And then the process shifts from the due diligence to the actual execution and delivery of what we've said. From the fact that we've delivered 5 out of our 8 projects so far, I think that indicates that we're pretty good at the delivery, and we've got long-term expertise at this. So that's the fundamentals of the risk management process, and really the variables that we have to deal with, mainly the realisation of the assets and the time that it takes. Both those things are very clearly managed on the way through and at the end. A short-term Natgen development trust does not pay regular income payments. The total return from the project comes through the sale of the units, of the strata units at the end of the building process. So all the return comes back pretty much at once in the last 2 to 3 months of the trust. So once we've sold a number of units, initially the debt is paid back to the debt provider, then the capital is paid back to the unit holders, and then finally the profit is paid back. The most recent illustration of this was with UC26 Trust, which in December last year paid back the capital and the profit to the unit holders. And I think in the UC26 information memorandum, I think we're going to put basically a case study of UC26 as something which is very, very similar in both size and basic attributes as the UC26 offer. So as a unit holder in UC26, what can you expect from us? First of all, the first thing you'll get when you make your investment is that you will get a statement to show your unit holding in the trust. At that stage, definitely passed our due diligence, and we're ready to do the final design aspects of the building, which were basically refining the design right up to the time where we called tenders for the construction. So it's probably important to recognise that what you see in the information memorandum for the trust will be slightly different from what we build, because we're constantly looking for value engineering and making sure that what we build is exactly what the market will be looking for at the end. On the way through, you'll get regular reporting. Every milestone of what we do, be it lodgement of appropriate approvals, appointing the contractor, going through the building stages, completion of the building, titling and sales, will all be reported back to you on a regular basis. Typically every 2 to 3 months is our typical reporting cycle for a Natgen development trust. So who is this investment best suited for? Well, let me first say on this basis that this video is not intended to be financial advice, so you should take your own advice from your trusted advisor on whether this is suitable for you. But in terms of who we're designing these for, it's really people who are looking for capital appreciation within their portfolio. They're not looking for regular monthly income, but looking for that appreciation element. And also people who are looking for relatively short-term investments. A Natgen investment trust is a 5 to 6 year commitment. A Natgen short-term development trust is around a 2-year commitment. So that also creates a difference in the sort of people who invest in these two things. That said, we have a number of investors who invest in both types to provide a level of diversification within their portfolio. Natgen continues to provide this type of development product to the market because we see it as valuable in the long term for our unit holder base. Over the last 6 years since we started in this business, we've got quite a large following of investors and prospective investors, all of whom are feeding back to us what they're looking for in investments within their commercial property part of their portfolio. So we continue to listen to that feedback and seek to provide what they're looking for. And what they tell us they're looking for is consistency from us, so that over time they keep getting what they expect from Natgen. Reporting and being kept in the loop is vital for them, so we make sure that our reporting provides them with what they need, and also a very good understanding of exactly where we are in the cycle of any of our investments. And we seek to do that through both reporting, but also we feel giving a little bit of information about the general market and things that are happening in the market and how that impacts. So one thing that we're often asked in any Natgen trust is the impact of interest rates. With a Natgen development trust, they are geared development investments, so typically we borrow between 50 and 60% of the value. So the difference between a investment trust and a development trust is that the debt is actually only out for a fairly short period of time. So we pay cash for the sites, that's the investor capital. Typically the first few draws for the development are also done out of investor capital, So you're about a third the way through the construction before any debt is drawn down. So the part of the process that has debt in it is actually quite compressed. On that basis, the interest rate that we achieve is somewhat less relevant than keeping the timing short. So all our management process is about keeping the time of the debt short, and obviously we seek the best interest rates we can, but it's not the primary motivation for managing debt. Within the Natgen universe, there are a number of different companies that provide various services to make a Natgen Development Trust possible. One of those companies is Literal Drift Group, called LDG colloquially. Literal Drift Group is basically our development management arm and provides the development management services for Natgen development trusts. Development management is a very important part of the process because that's where we make sure everything is orderly and done within time and within budget. Time slip and budget slip are the two main risks related to the delivery of a development, and thus we need to keep very tight control on both those things. Also, other member companies of the Natgen Group provide other services to Natgen Development Trusts and incidentally Natgen investment trusts. Those companies are outlined within the information memorandum. To invest in Natgen Development Trust UC26, you need to get a copy of the information memorandum and read it carefully. It's got a lot of information in it which is really valuable in making a decision whether to invest or not. Once you've done that, you need to make a decision to consult a trusted advisor, which we encourage you also to do, to see whether this investment is right for you. And then you'll find in the back of the information memorandum page outlining the process to invest. Typically you have to register on the Natgen website under the investor portal, fill in the appropriate requirements there. I might add, I don't really say this very often, but we have a lot of obligations to the government to collect information. So if you're looking at how we do this, we don't do it because we need to know so much. We have positive obligations that the government requires us to get all sorts of material. Those obligations are actually becoming more onerous over time, and thus we're seeking to improve our systems all the time to make that as least painful as possible for our unit holders and ourselves.